All right, welcome to episode 5 of Lizards and Locations Tavern Ramblings. This is John here with you with also...
Andrew, I'm here to tell you about your Lord and Savior, the Fey Warlock.
The Fey Warlock, the Fey Patron. So we are here to talk about kind of two playtests and kind of combined.
Yeah, 1.5. 1.25.
Yeah, so we're going to do playtest 7, which was a pretty big one. Not as big as playtest 6, but still very, very big.
I think they were pretty similar.
Yeah, they had, I think there's like 2 less classes is the main thing. And then we're also going to talk about bastions and some of those new cantrip rewrites they did as well. But we can just put that when we talk about spells. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of an easy thing there. Mm-hmm. So first of all, let's kind of get us started with what's in this, right? What's covered in the 7th as well as the bastion. So the first thing we know is that there's 5 classes that are talked about. And those 5 classes are the barbarian, the fighter, the sorcerer, the warlock, and the wizard. So they're kind of looking at those 5 there. Mm-hmm. Was there, and we'll talk about these classes and as we get more into it, just based off that, anything that really sticks out to you, like just those 5 that you, when you look through them, like, okay, that one's, that's different, or...
No, I was kind of surprised actually, because like, I remember I watched a little bit of the wizard and the sorcerer, and they made their own like distinct things, like earlier on.
Yeah.
They've changed a couple things about the wizard that I liked that they changed it, and then they reverted it because I guess people didn't like the create spell or whatever.
Yeah. Create spell.
I thought that was really cool. I thought that was perfect for like a wizard to do that kind of thing. I'm looking at a camera for no reason right now. But yeah, like that was one of the things where I was like, they took that out. I thought that was a really good, like, I guess they didn't want to codify it as to only a wizard can do this.
Yeah.
But I thought that was a good, like, flavor thing for the wizard, but apparently it didn't score higher or whatever.
It definitely gave me thoughts as a DM of like, you know what, I would like to allow my wizards to have that ability if they get at a level where they could create a spell. Like, that's cool.
I get, but like, my point is that why limit it to wizards if you don't have to?
Absolutely.
So like, can a sorcerer, instead of doing a freaking, I don't know, fireball that's ice, like, is that really only a wizard can figure out how to do that? Like,
yeah, I
don't know. It depends on like if it's a draconic wizard with like silver dragon blood, and like that's their chosen thing. Like, it would make sense that they would be able to do that, but like maybe only for their element, as opposed to a wizard who can do it for anything.
Yeah, which is hard to codify, right? Because now you're getting to very specific. So maybe it's just better to leave it open-ended for homebrew, right?
Yeah, and like the less you specify, the better for this kind of thing. As much as people will probably get upset if you only bring a rule book out that's like 60 pages. They'd be like, oh man, I spent $50 for this.
Yeah,
but from a gameplay perspective, I think the more they leave up to chance, the more they leave up to the DM, the more it'll be tailored to that specific table, which is good.
Yeah.
Other than that, they nerfed the don't take damage from anything except for psychic barbarian, which I thought was funny.
Yeah.
But
and they added
they took some out, they put some in, but I thought that was just funny because like that's like a meme at this point. Like, the barbarian who just take the bear totem and never take damage from anything.
Again. Yeah.
Besides that, I really like the warlock, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, we're gonna spend probably a bit of time on that.
Fighter, they put a cool thing in and then took it out, but we'll get to that as well.
Sorcerer, I thought, got some pretty cool early level stuff, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The arcane stuff, that was fun.
Well, I mean, I feel like that was already in there. Like, that's the thing, is like a lot of the sorcerer is like, they changed a couple things. Like, they nerfed a couple of the, like, they think they nerfed twin spell or something like that.
Yeah.
But besides that, like, the sorcerer didn't change a lot.
Yeah.
Which I think is good, because I liked the playtest 5 magical rage, essentially, is what I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. It's more raw power, right? Yeah. There's a lot of, and that's what sorcerer is, raw power, right? They don't have a patron given to them. It's not that it's learned. They are essentially going through life and getting more powerful,
Right. Through some strange circumstance of their birth, they have magical powers.
Yeah.
They am a wizard, but not really.
So I think we'll get through those classes and be able to talk about those. I wanted to mention that obviously each one of these classes has subclasses that have been changed, but there were 2 new subclasses that were added, like completely new. Half the World Tree Barbarian, which I think is fucking badass, and then the Brawler Fighter, which we can talk about it, but spoiler alert, it's been axed.
They took it out.
So according to...
We can talk about why they did that.
Yeah, according to Perkins and Crawford, by the way, each class will have a new subclass. So in the case of the fighter, not fighter, yeah, it's the fighter, brawler, right? They're getting rid of that, but there's still gonna be something new. So the new core books will have something new for them.
Sure. I mean, like at some point, they're gonna go through all of the 3.5 prestige classes and be like, oh shit, what do we have left? Fuck.
Copy paste. Wow. So we'll talk about classes, subclasses. There was some spell changes going on there, some revised spell lists. Obviously, we talked about it was coming. They're getting rid of the arcane, divine, and
primal.
Thank you. That's going away. There's now going to be specific class spell lists again.
I'm gonna be real with you. I'm keeping that for my homebrews, like
the arcane.
Yeah, more specifically splitting off primal and divine, which in the past, like the ranger and the druid and the barbarian, I guess sometimes, they would have these spells and it would be classified as divine spells. Mm-hmm. Like I understand why, because it is like a nature god giving it to them. Like in that case, all spells are divine because Mithra is the one giving magical energies and allowing people to use it. Yeah. So like contrivances. I enjoy the primal divine split, so I will be keeping that for my particular games because it won't have any real like. Excuse me. It won't have any.
Reminded me actually.
Yeah. It won't have any like mechanical changes unless they go back to making some mechanics for that. But just from a flavor standpoint, I enjoy that more than not. I enjoy it.
I'm smiling because I'm also so I've been working on a homebrew world that I haven't really shared too much with people, but the history of the world is based on who holds the power. Is the people of the primals, the people of the arcane, or is the people of the divine, and that has set the ages in motion. Okay. So there has been moments when the primal are on top, right? Mm-hmm. Then that affects how we see the people of the divine and how we see the people of the arcane. Sure. So it's I'm actually doing it as a lore reason for my homebrew world I'm making on.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that I love it. I actually like that idea of splitting those three because I think about your magic system. Your
the unshackling.
The unshackling. I'm like, okay, what gets affected by this? You know what I mean? So is this an arcane thing? Is this a divine thing? Is it all of them? You know what I mean? And if you have that separation, now you have even more of a lore reason or a plot reason why something like that could be affected. You know?
And you guys have kind of tinkered around with that in the Pillars of Creation campaign that we run. Mm-hmm. Whereas like it's all spells. Anytime, and it's not even spells sometimes, there are things that you can do as a class feature that involves the mechanic.
Invoking something.
Right. It involves like the thing that causes the unshackling to be a thing also applies to other things that can happen.
Yep.
So it's not just it's spells. It's just that spells are doing the thing that triggers the thing. Yes. So like it's a chain of like cause and effect where it doesn't necessarily have to be a spell. It can be other things that trigger the unshackling and can cause instability and nonsense. Mm-hmm. And like it's not to go into it too much, but because spoilers. But
yeah,
I think it's a lot of fun. It definitely adds some danger to spellcasting in general, which I think spellcasters kind of need because spellcasting is so powerful. And like, oh man, if I cast a second level spell and that almost kills my party because it changed the healing to lightning.
Yeah,
that's spoiler alert. That is the thing that happened.
Yeah.
Imagine if you cast like a level 8 healing spell that goes wrong, or a
or
a level 8 damaging spell that goes awry. The higher up they go, like the higher the risk.
Yeah, the sense of you invoking some type of catalyst, I mean, can cause something cataclysmic. You know what I mean? In a bad way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. Another thing that we'll talk about that we'll see is actually not too big, but there were some weapon revisions that was done in 7.
Yeah.
Playing with the weapon masteries, playing with what is classified as simple or martial.
Yeah, and we decided to adopt that into our games, but at a slight I modified it a little bit because I am myself and I can't be asked to just do rules as written, I guess.
And it's I thought it. Once we talked about it, I thought it mixed well. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I think
it seems like a system that you can.
I think it went flawlessly. I think it's exactly what it should be, and that's why I did it.
Yeah, Lastly, I don't think we need to spend too much time on it, but there was some feat stuff. There was a feat change where the ability score improvement, but that was already play tested earlier, so we can just mention that real quickly. Bastions is the big thing, right? Bastions has its own PDF to look at. There's a lot to change about Bastions.
I don't even know if we could go over all of Bastions, even if it had its own freaking thing. So I think we'll gloss over it and just kind of like dip our toes into like the vast deep end that is having a keep or a bastion of your own that like you can do so much with. It's just, there's so many different things you can do with that.
Yeah. So, and that's the big stuff that's going to be in this episode.
Nice.
So
let's get to barbarians.
Yeah, let's get to it. So the good. What is there anything good that you saw in what was going on there?
Let me think. The reckless attack going from instead of just your turn, it goes all the way till the start of your next turn. I thought that was really nice because it allows you to use those reckless attack bonus or advantages on attack opportunities. Yeah, and reactions and stuff.
Reactions is the big one. That's
so like that was a big thing. That's actually like an entire other attack. If you position your barbarian as barbarians are always positioned, then you should never not have them positioned that way. But yeah, other than that, it's a lot of stuff that was just from Tasha's that really is kind of the same thing.
The instinctive pounce and stuff.
Yeah, and like they reverted a bunch of stuff. They put primal knowledge back down to 2, which is fine. There wasn't really anything specific. Like the persistent rage changing from now if you're incapacitated, it still goes until you're unconscious.
Yep.
Which I think is kind of the point of the persistent rage. Is like, oh yeah, I took this thing specifically so that my rage doesn't go away, and like, oh man, you got hit by like a spell, and now you're fucked.
Yeah, I'm thinking like a beholder uses one of its, gazes at you, like doesn't mean I'm gonna lose my rage, right? Now if I go completely unconscious, that's a different story.
Yeah,
so I think it's intended.
So yeah, if you're gonna have persistent rage as a thing, like just because your hands were tied for like 4 seconds, like and now your rage is gone, like that doesn't.
I was curious what they meant by that first one, the deafened part, because they said, "Hey, even if you have blinded or was it deaf, like the danger sense I'm talking about, right? If they're blinded or deafened, you still have it still works with danger sense." Mm-hmm. And I was like, "Huh, I wonder why they did that." So are they saying that this is a different sense that's not relying on eyes and ears and
the danger sense for last time wasn't, or was? Am I being incorrect here? But isn't that the if I can see it, I have a advantage on dexterity saving throws. They just buffed it essentially. Yeah. So now it's anything you have that. It's just on dexterity saving throws. You don't have to see it. You don't have to deafen. It's only if you're incapacitated.
It's almost like spider sense. I'm thinking about it. I guess Spidey doesn't have to see it.
Yeah, it would be if Spider-Man had to see the thing you're talking about, but he doesn't. It's more of a wisdom, like awareness thing that he has.
But now you don't have to see it because you can be blind,
right?
And you could be deaf. You just all of a sudden have that inclination, so it became more like Spidey sense.
It is now more like Spider sense. Yes.
Yeah, Spider Kingles, as it's been affectionately called.
Wow.
We can talk about the subclasses when we get the subclasses and stuff, unless you want to do that at the same time. But
I mean, I'm not really sure what else there is to say about Barbarian. Like the base class, it's pretty much what it has been.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of differences.
No, it was just some level management, like moving stuff, like changing what level you get stuff, right? Yeah. And a lot of that was because they made some changes early on in playtests. Yeah. And they said, oh, wait, we want this to line up with all those other, like Tasha's and Xanathars and stuff.
Yeah, they had some good ideas, and they just kind of put them wherever, which, honestly, throughout these playtests has been kind of all over the place.
Yeah,
like
chaotic.
They just kind of put things in places where it doesn't really make any sense. Like, there's really powerful things at level 11, and then these super, things at level 17 where it's like, you can't have a bad thing at level 17, dude. That's where you're supposed to be that's when you're
wizards are getting 9th level spells.
Yeah, that's when and we're always going to I'm always going to compare it to this. If that thing that they're getting at level 17 isn't as good as I'm changing my friend into a dragon, you're going to be like, okay, why would I bother then? What's the point of it? Because if you're going to give me this, it needs to be good. It needs to be something that if it's not transforming into a dragon, it needs to be something I'm using every single time I think of what am I going to do next turn. That needs to be an option. Yeah. Because otherwise there's no point to it.
Yeah.
That's always my thing. And again, it doesn't have to be changing into a dragon because you can only do that so many times. You have 1 or 2 9th level spell slots, but 7th level spell slots are pretty good too, and you have 2 or 3 of those. It's just one of those things where it was a noticeable trend that I saw where it was like, these don't really make any sense. They need to readjust where they're giving what to who.
Yeah.
And then But that being said, one of the better things I saw was brutal critical, where they changed it from extra dice of whatever it is you're doing to it's just now a d12.
Yeah.
You can get a
I can punch you. I can use an axe.
Yeah, like if you could use like a freaking dagger, 1d4 damage. But if you get a critical, that's bumps it up to 1d. You get an extra 1d12 damage, which is pretty good.
Yeah, and that still gets doubled in your whatever system of crit you're using.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Which you'll probably have advantage on most of your attacks because every barbarian I've ever seen has used reckless attacks basically every time.
Yeah. So let's say you take your critical, right? The way you do criticals. When it's take level 17, right? Level 17, they get 3d12 brutal critical. That's 36 automatic, and then you get to roll.
Yeah, see, that is a good level 17 buff. Like, okay,
36 damage right away. Like,
yeah, without anything else.
Yeah, that's really, really good.
Yeah.
And then add your rage damage, you know what I mean? Like, add all those kind of things.
Yeah.
We're talking way better minimum hits now.
And I think that's where barbarians need to be, because, like, barbarians, when they're just rolling, when they don't have a critical, their damage can fluctuate wildly just because of dice rolls. If you're using a great axe, which, you know, I would say 40% of barbarians probably use a great axe.
Yeah, great axe, great sword, you know, along those lines.
Well, I mean, specifically a great axe because that's the 1d12. Because the d12 is the barbarian.
Great sword's 2d6, that's true.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which I'm kind of like, so it's just better.
It's just better because my minimum is 2 now.
Yeah, I think it just is better, but whatever. From an average's point of view. Yeah, like I think the average for the greatsword is like 7.5, and the average for a great axe is 6.5. It's just an entirely 1 point of damage better at a baseline. So it's not neither here nor there though. But I did like brutal critical. I did like that they gave him the d12. Anytime you give anybody a d12, it's fun because it's been so ignored for so long in the Dungeons and Dragons space.
Yeah, and it's not new, but the Primal Champion's fun. Like if you get to level 20 barbarian. 24, you have a possibility of getting 24 strength, 24 constitution. Like, you go up by 4 to a max of 24 raw before items. Yeah, you know what I mean? That's fun.
I mean, you know, it's
+7.
Having better anything.
Think about your health points, by the way.
Well, I mean, you're gonna have 1,000,000 health points at level 20 as barbarian either way. But yeah, you add another 40 hit points to it because Constitution goes up by
2.
That 2 times 20. So just you get to level 20, you get your normal, and then you get an extra 40, and then your strength is also probably at least 20 by then, probably 22. Yeah, 20. I mean 20. Actually, it is probably 24, assuming you take all your ASIs and do.
And then
I don't know. Like you could easily do it.
Yeah.
But you would have a character that doesn't have a lot of fun things it can do.
Not as many feats.
Besides, I mean, like, and feats are one of the best things about the game, if you ask me. Like, I really miss all of the feats that we used to have in 3.5, but...
Yeah.
I mean, you and I both do the background feat that they brought in with Spelljammer.
Spelljammer, yeah, because they had the tough one that was attached to it.
Yeah, they just attached the feat to
the other one.
The only one they did. Was there another one?
There was 2.
There was 2. So 2 backgrounds had feats, and none of the other ones did. I'm just like, what?
Yeah. And then they did for, I don't know if it was Big B's or whatever it was. They said, hey, if they have a feat from their background, you should probably allow your other players to have one too.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of those things that kind of goes without saying.
Yeah.
But I understand that they wanted the backgrounds to have like specific things, like the gambler one that I do with Astra that we're gonna be playing in like an hour. So, or like she's supposed to have like this innate sense of like what's gonna happen, like what are the odds of something happening. Like you could argue that is like a feat because I use it like a feat, but it's very limiting. And so what I think is like you should be able to do that thing, or if you don't necessarily care about, you know, like the Sage, like I think the Sage gives you like specific bonuses if you're talking to somebody, or Investigator, where like, oh yeah,
I think it's like Arcana or Investigation.
Yeah, and it's just like basic things. It's like that's not exactly unless you're specifically in that situation, that there's not a lot of use for it. So like if you could trade that in for, you know, a feat like Shadow Touched or Fade Touched or something that gives gives you the reason why you're doing that. The reason why that is your backstory, and like it gives you a feat that you can use constantly all the time, as opposed to, you know, once every 10, 11 sessions where you happen to be in the place that your background kind of fits into. Whereas like if you're in like the wild space, are like oh yeah, you're tough. You just have more HP. You know when that's applicable? Fucking all the time.
Let's talk about the fighter. So, all
right,
with the fighter, some of the new stuff that kind of changed there. One of the big things is the idea of the action surge, right? It now allows you to essentially you can do any type of action,
anything except magic.
Yeah, and they are defining magic as 1, spells, but also 2, using magic items.
Yep. Eat a dick, wizard fighters.
Yeah. So
eat a whole dick.
If you have the wand of fireball, right, you cannot use it twice there. So that's a pretty big thing. But also action surge allowing me to dash. Although I'm trying to think if I had a fighter that wanted to say, hey, can I action surge dash? I don't know why I would say no to that. Like, except for if I was just going by raw.
Well, I mean, the idea is that that's what the raw says. So that's why people ask. Like, oh, well, it says right here that this is how it works. So DM, can we overrule that? And usually they say yes because, like, why not?
Yeah. The big thing also, I can't remember if they mentioned on here. So they say the second wind does the short rest, but realistically, we were doing that one shot, and Mary's character had fight. No, it wasn't one shot. It was the pillars. She's a fighter in that. And I was like, how many second winds do you have? She's like, oh, I have 1. It's like, well, now you don't. Like I looked down, I was like, you have 3 now.
Yeah, and like I like that too because, it's kind of like just like a little healing thing that they get because, they're good at... They're supposed to be front line.
Yeah.
And they don't have as much health as the barbarian. So giving them some way to kind of recoup that, even if it is, second wind is... it takes out of their action economy.
Yeah.
So it's...
And it does something new, too. Right now I can use my second winds to do... Was it disengage? Right?
Yeah, like they had a couple other things where...
Yeah. There was like 2 things that she could do on top of it.
Yeah.
Right?
And it was interesting... But yeah, it's like the tactical shift where like it's a level 5 feature where you can move without provoking attack opportunity.
Yes, that's what
with your second wind. Like in order, as well as healing, you get a free disengage. Or not necessarily. It's not the same thing, but it's essentially like it does the same thing where you don't provoke an opportunity. You basically like tactical retreat or something like that.
And that actually, the word tactical reminds me, the new tactical mind is really fun. At level 2, they can use a second wind to roll that dice to add to an ability check.
Yeah.
So it's like now they're getting more what they can use the second wind for, and that gives them more reason why I should have more of them. So I think fighter.
Where do you see that
level 2? It should say
tactical mind.
Tactical mind. When you fail an ability check, you can
use your second wind. Yeah, it does say that.
Yeah. And that's completely new. So this is something new from this playtest, and I really liked it. I thought that was really cool.
I like it because it brings them more into line with like the other skill-based like the rogue and the bard, I guess, because they are like supposed to be skilled. Like the fighter is supposed to be like good. Yeah, they're supposed to be expert at what they do. So it makes sense that they would like, okay, for things that I'm good at, it would make sense for me to have some way to up my die roll on my skill checks. Because like it feels bad to be like, oh yeah, you're the stupid fighter. Like, like you don't have to have like high intelligence to be a fighter, but the idea that this person who trains day in day out with like all of their weapons or maybe just with a couple weapons isn't good at like the thing that they decide to do is like that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, you don't have to be intelligent to understand sword fighting. Right?
Well, it depends. It helps.
Yeah.
It does help because reading your opponent and like knowing what to do, but you can train that into yourself as well.
Like you know your craft so well,
right? Like I don't like
understand the shift and the weight.
But that stuff can be taught to you. That's not necessarily you need to be smart in order to figure it out yourself. If you have a trainer, which most fighters are like military background or like that kind of thing. Yeah. If it's trained into you to react in a certain way to a certain thing, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're smart. It just means that you've been training so long that you know what it's not difficult to look at a thing and react to a thing. Yeah. I think of Renaissance Italy when all of those noble families were training their youths and essentially dueling, right? They're like, hey, here's a rapier, and let's teach you how to use this, right? And so like every gentleman, if you will, was able to do some type of sword fighting. You know what I mean? Yeah. If you haven't played Assassin's Creed 2, you'll know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? But yeah, so I like Tactical Mind. I love it because it's a little reminiscent of the sneak attack thing they're doing with is it cunning strikes or devious strikes or whatever? Cunning strikes. Yeah, it's using an action to using something and then going, hey,
Could we?
Well, it's not even an action economy. That's your damage economy.
Yeah, damage economy or mechanic, right? Is saying, can I use this for another purpose besides what it was designed for? It's like, yes, please.
Yeah.
If you do that, now we have very different characters. You know what I mean? And I like that a lot.
And that's the thing. Like, do you like trading 1d6 damage, so 3.5 damage per round, for a poisoned condition on the enemy for like a minute?
Yeah.
That's so worth it.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a good trade-off. And like that's not even considered like the trips and all the other stuff that you get later on in the rogue table. The rogue is good. We all know like there's a reason why they came out with the like review of the rogue, and it came out with like what was it 87, 88?
Crazy, almost
for a base class to have that high of a approval rate is nuts. But like it's really good.
And the same thing with the fighter, right?
Yeah,
sacrificing 1d10 of health. That is more than what a health potion, or that's exactly the max a health potion can get me. Right? Mm-hmm. That's a good economy. I am essentially saying I have 3 health potions, guys, and I can use them every short rest.
Yeah, and it's like that saves you money because you have to buy potions, which are expensive as balls.
Think pillars, by the way, where it's regulated by the government. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So like it's cool. I like that one a lot.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I like it. I like it as well. And then they have the studied attacks where if you miss, you get advantage on your next attack because you're studying your opponent, which I think is a good idea for a fighter as well. Everything else looks pretty much the same. The only thing that I think we should talk about with the fighter is the weapon masteries, but I think we can get that later.
Yeah, I think we can talk when we do the weapon stuff. Yeah, they get a lot more.
They get a lot.
Masteries.
They get so many.
Yep.
So we'll get to that when we get to it.
Reminder that all classes are going back to their 20th level feature that they were getting before, or a new version of it, right? And you still get a boon feat on top of that, right? So that's the one of the main things they made. We'll talk subclasses later. So Sorcerer, I think, is next for us. All right, Sorcerer. Well, my favorite thing for me, I love innate sorcery. I know that was talked about actually already, but it's so cool. Empowers your spells attack. What does that do? So for 1 minute, and I get this at first level. I did this on our Pillars of Creation stuff because Jonas is part sorcerer. For 1 minute, I activate it, and now I have advantage on my spell attacks, which is so good.
Crazy.
Like Firebolt, all those kind of things, right?
Actually insane.
And then I get a plus to my spell save DC as well. So what I'm picturing is like I'm going beast mode as a sorcerer. Like all of a sudden the wind starts blowing in my hair. You know what I mean? Like I feel like it's like that moment when you just become Super Saiyan. Like you go powerful and it's just a burst of energy. And I think that's so very, very cool to give sorcerers, because the idea of a sorcerer for me is someone who has this power that is so raw that they're learning how to channel it, Yeah. And to get that at level 1, awesome. So very, very cool.
It's pretty cool.
And then Arcane Eruption, or Explosion, whatever it's called, is pretty cool too. But yeah, I love it. It makes me think that the one of the biggest changes, I think, from 5e to 5e, this revised core book, is sorcerers feel more like sorcerers.
To 5.5, you can say it. It's fine.
To 5.5, they feel more like sorcerers. They really do.
Yeah. They feel more like characters that are less versatile than wizards by design, but more like just raw power, which is exactly it. Like we're going to say raw power a lot when we're talking about the sorcerer, because that's their underlying, like, that's their theme, is that's what they are. So
yeah,
it's fine. The other thing that because I was looking at all these things, I'm just like, there's not a whole lot.
There's a big level change. Do you see the Sorcerer Restoration one?
No, what is that?
That's the one where if I roll initiative, I can regain a certain amount of my sorcery points.
Yeah, they're doing that with a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like they did that. I think they have that with Rage as well for the Barbarian, because it's essentially the same mechanic but executed differently.
Yeah. It's cool because it's not a short rest recharge, right? It's literally you get this.
Yeah, on initiative. There are other things where they're allowing. We talked about this last episode.
Yeah.
Where they're putting a lot of things. They're giving people back limited resources on a short rest, just to
versus none.
Versus the only reason you would need a short rest is if you have a warlock in your party.
Yeah. Warlock and heal. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't have many complaints for the sorcerer.
I don't have any complaints either. It was good on playtest 5, and this is just kind of like small tweaks where they brought it back into line with the 5th edition sorcerer. Like they just kind of leveled out.
Yeah.
So like they brought things, they moved things around, but it's pretty good. It's you know, if you want a magical barbarian, like
essentially in playtest 5 they were getting rid of twin spell, like they were trying to just get rid of it,
right? And
now they're like, okay, we'll bring it back, but it's only for things that can hit one target, not things that hit area of effect.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I shouldn't be able to twin spell fireball. Okay, yeah, but I can twin spell, I don't know, firebolt.
Well, you weren't able to twin spell fireball anyway, because twin spell was it was specifically a single target.
Oh, so it was already that way. So they just brought that part of it back.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, the reason it was because you could like twin spell freaking hold person or dominate or something like that.
Gotcha.
Or disintegration, right? Because that's a single target as well. Like that kind of thing where like it's so much more powerful.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it was fine. And the other things about sorcerers have been pretty much they did get rid of sorcerer's vitality, which I don't quite remember what it did, so it's probably fine that they did that because I don't remember it.
Yeah, I don't remember it either. So
it could have been that good.
It wasn't something like Arcane Eruption. Like that's really cool.
Yeah. And then they gave they created a new spell for the sorcerer called Sorcerer's Burst, which has exploding dice, which is fun.
Yeah, is that the cantrip one?
Yes.
Or is it okay, so they're getting like their own Eldritch Blast feel to it.
Yes.
Yeah, which is cool.
Kind of.
That's kind of cool.
You're right. They also have a 4th level spell, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah. You want to switch to Warlock, the big one?
I do want to switch to Warlock. I always want to switch to Warlock. Warlock is my baby.
I'd have you probably take charge because Warlocks are more of your thing. You probably know, you do know a lot more about Warlocks than I do.
Yep.
What stood out to you for this?
One of the biggest things that stood out was that we don't have medium armor anymore.
So you just get light?
We only get light armor now.
Okay.
Which I mean, it's fine.
So leather studded.
Yeah, it's like again, it's fine.
Yeah.
It does like a medium armored Warlock doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. You'd have to spend a feat now to get that.
It just depends on what your build is, because a lot of people build the Hexblade Warlocks that want to be like in fighting.
The battle. Yeah.
But a lot of people who build those kinds of Warlocks are doing it with finesse weapons, so they have a high dexterity cost anyway.
Yeah.
Which, like, if you have medium armor, you get like plus two maximum, which is like, it's probably better to just have mage armor.
Yeah.
Like
mage armor puts you at a 12 or 13?
13 plus your dexterity modifier. Yeah.
So there's no reason not to do that then. Yeah. I'm trying to think of.
Also, and it just kind of frees up your whole thing with like, you don't necessarily need armor.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. Like, you can get studded leather, which is 12 plus your dexterity.
5e is more forgiving than the early 1 and 2 editions where you couldn't wear armor and cast spells sometimes. Like remember AD&D, you couldn't wear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You couldn't do it. So at least it's more forgiving. Like light armor is still usable.
And that's not the biggest one.
Yeah.
The biggest change that they made to a Warlock is now they have pack magic again.
Okay.
They brought back pack magic. We don't have the cool. We're not a half caster anymore.
So you see it as a negative then, right?
I liked the idea of them being a half caster because even when we had the half caster thing, the thing that I like most about Warlocks are their incantations.
Okay.
Which they had more incantations than they did previously. So it's like, I see this as an absolute win.
Yeah.
More spell slots, more invocations, more ways to make the Warlock special and interesting.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really good idea. Apparently, I was in the minority. Apparently, people really enjoy only having 2 spell slots. I don't really understand why, but
I remember Crawford talking about that too, and just being like, he was like, I thought this would be a win because he was like, he had the same same thing as you. He was like, oh, you don't want more spells? Okay.
I honestly don't understand it. I honestly don't. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's cool, and now we have spell slots. We have up to 4
versus 2, right?
Yeah, it was 2 all the way down before. Now you get 4 at I want to say 16, but
17.
17. Oh yeah.
Yeah, 17,
yep,
and
17.
then you get 3 at 11.
Right.
Okay.
So it was just one of those things. Okay.
So you really don't want to get that to end game, though. Let's be honest. That.
Well, it definitely makes it more advantageous to stay with Warlock more than it used to be, because it used to be you get to level.
It's a multi-class.
You get to level 3 with Warlock, and you're like, all right, that's fine. I'm just gonna move on with my life.
Yeah.
go get some paladin classes or whatever. You know, it's just one of those things where it didn't really make any sense to go farther because there was such a harsh diminishing returns on your investment, especially because Eldritch Blast doesn't require you to have warlock levels. It's just base level. You could be level 1 warlock, level freaking 16 fighter, and you still get 3 Eldritch Blasts per attack thing. So it's just like, well, I don't know. It's one of those things that was weird, but that was one of the bigger things. I really liked the spells.
I do like that you get Eldritch Invocations at level 1 again.
Yes.
That's pretty nice. I also like that they increased the cap from 8 to 10.
Well, I like that they did that too because they've made the pacts now in Invocation as opposed to something that you choose at level 3.
Like, and it's stuck with it kind of thing? Or
well, yeah, because now you can have Pact of the Tome and Pact of the Chain, or Pact of the Tome and Pact Blade. Of the Blade, or you can have all 3 of them if you want it. Like, if you really want, to be the Spellcaster plus the Hexblade plus you have a cool little pet. Like, you can do that if you want to. Like, go ahead for it. And I think that's a good idea. I think that's a really, really good idea. They also have, like, some interesting things where they have Mystical Cunning, which allows you to regain spell slots, which they kind of needed because we're down to 2 again.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just one of those things that, like, it's one of, but like the magical cunning is one of those things where, like, oh yeah, it's a minute. Like, okay, so it's not quite a short rest.
Yeah.
But it's basically a short rest.
You can't do it during combat. Like,
you could.
I mean,
but it's stupid to do so. But like, I don't really understand the difference between asking a party to hold on a minute and asking a party to hold on a short rest.
Yeah.
Like, what is the actual difference between those two things? Because short rests can be anywhere, like, depending on your
DM.
It can be anywhere from like 10 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
Like, an hour is a long time to just sit there, but like,
especially if you're in a dungeon.
Right, but it's not a long time in the grand scheme of things. Yeah. It's not 8 hours.
It's not a long rest. Yeah.
Right.
I typically like to make mine 30 to an hour. Like, I get why people do 10-minute short rests. I understand the incentive there, but I prefer at least 30 minutes because at 30 minutes, half an hour, someone can come by. You know what I mean? In 30 minutes, we could have a random encounter, Yeah. It's hard to say that for a minute. So I get what they're trying to say there. Maybe it's not finished in that sense. It's cool, though. At least you can get some of your spells back.
Yeah.
I saw Hexmaster is gone.
Yeah. They don't know what to do about Hex. They're still waffling, I can tell.
Yeah. What?
But yeah, Pack Magic is back. Which means that not only do you have less spell slots, but multi-classing is now more complicated to do when you're a warlock, when you have and you go beyond, a certain level, which I think is kind of silly. But I mean, that's the will of the masses, I guess. If it were me, I would absolutely have kept them being a half-caster because that's essentially what they are, and it would have just made more sense at the time to make it that way. It makes more sense now that they've kind of reversed course, and now instead of trying to get rid of short rests, they're trying to make everyone use short rests.
Yeah.
So it's from a meta standpoint, warlocks have gotten better because of that.
Yeah.
Which I think is directly because everyone said they didn't want to have a half-caster. Whatever.
I do like that they decided to keep it play-tested well the contact patron as a feature.
Yes, contact patron.
That's a pretty cool thing.
That is fun.
I'm thinking, like, as a DM, what I could do with that. That's pretty fun. Because usually as a DM, it's me deciding when I want to contact my my warlocks.
Right.
Now, as a DM, I can be like, we're not expecting it, and all of a sudden, hey, I want to talk to patrons. Like, oh shit, okay, that could change what's going on here.
Yeah, contact that they're playing with a guaranteed success. Not bad.
Yeah,
can definitely be. Oh, and by the way, as a flavor thing, probably one of the best things I've ever seen put into the game at all.
Yeah,
from a flavor standpoint, that is like, holy shit, there it is. So yeah, like that's always fun, and it did make sense for the warlock to have some way to do the thing that's their good shit. That's their money. So yeah, and then of course, because Pack Magic is back, Mystic Arcanum is back. You get one for like a level 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th spell.
The the Eldritch Invocations, they did some just rewriting of some stuff. I love the new Agonizing Blast. It doesn't have to be Eldritch Blast now. I can use it on any of my cantrips that are an attack cantrip.
I'm mixed on that, honestly.
You think so?
I'm not...
You like the raw power of a...
and I know Kat is like this as well, where like for some reason she just doesn't want to use Eldritch Blast, even though it's like really good. Like oh no, why can't I use it on my Firebolt? It's like, and you know what? I said before, it makes sense to like be less specific to make it better for your specific table. Like, sure, whatever, but it's just like, but that's the thing that
Warlocks.
That like if you're talking like, here's the thing: if the reason you didn't want Pact Magic to go away is because it's a core feature of the Warlock, but now it's like, oh, but you can use the Warlock features on other spells that aren't Warlock spells, like.
You lost the core part of it now.
Like, well, like, but that's also a core part of the Warlock. So it's like, okay, we're kind of like, oh, they went too far, but now they came back, and now they're like, oh, but here's a little bit of the same thing. Like, oh, that's fine. Like, okay, I don't understand. Like, if it's a principal thing, why you would say that it was cool, but it's whatever.
I like it mainly because for people like Kat and those people who just want to go a different route than the typical Warlock, they don't get punished for it now. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So if my whole guy's character thing is ice, you know what I mean? Like, let's say I'm making a character that's all about cold damage. I can now not worry about, well, I don't get Agonizing Blast, you know, because I mainly do.
Sure. All right.
Yeah. Ray of Frost, you know, or something like that.
Yeah, and like I said, from a flavor standpoint, from a gameplay standpoint, it's fine. It's just, for me, because I'm salty about losing all of those spell slots, I'm just like, well, why is this okay? I don't get it. I don't understand. Grumpy old man yelled at cloud.
The double sight is so, like, I get why they did it, but why did we not have that in the first place? Where you can see in dim light now, not just
that is not. See, this is the thing. I can't think of any dungeon master that exists who'd be like, oh, but it's dim light and not darkness. You can't see it. Like, fucking okay, guy. Like, no one ever does that.
I was just looking at it and I was like, well, that rule was made from someone. Like, someone DM was, getting complained about.
Well, no, what it is that because the only people who do rules as written are like the official dungeon like the adventures, whatever they call it. I've never been to one of these places.
Yeah, I never participated, but I know you're talking about.
Right, but like there are places that like specifically, the Adventures Guild or whatever it's called, that where they specifically only do rules as written. So like that would be a thing. But like if you're just playing a game outside of like the overview of Wizards of the Coast, no one would ever enforce that. So like it was one of those things where like obvious as intended, like not even rules, like rules as obvious.
Yeah. A lot of these are either imported from Xanathar's or Tasha's, two of the best books we've ever gotten. It's freaking source books.
Oh yeah, no, and like most of these things are basically the same. The biggest differences are that Pact of the Blade is a invocation that kind of goes off of other things. Thirsting Blade got a buff, which is really nice. Because now you can get up to two. You get 2 attacks, which is just good. I think there's another one.
The Life Drinker is fun because now I can choose
Life
the damage.
Drinker, yeah, Life Drinker is really good.
Yeah, because let's say I don't want to do necrotic to a freaking necrotic beast. You know what I mean?
Right,
so
right.
It makes sense that I can do that now.
I think there was one that gave you another attack that you can get up to 3. I believe. Maybe not.
I do not know. A lot of them were level change stuff, like, taking away the prerequisites and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's fair. Anyway, it doesn't matter, but like you still have the Pact of the Tome, which now gives you they've taken Pact of the Tome and Book of Many Secrets and combined them into one invocation. So now you get Pact of the Tome, you get all of your extra cantrips and ritual spells, and they also give you another spell slot that you can use for each long rest, which is nice. And then you have it's very nice because you can use any ritual spell. You get ritual spells, and then anytime you find a ritual spell, you can just do it, which is really nice.
Thirsting Blade's one, actually, by the way, that lets you do that. The extra attack.
Yeah, well, I thought there was one that gave you like another extra attack, but I think that might have been playtest 5.
Okay.
So they've taken that out, so they can only get 2 attacks, which brings it more in line. Oh no, here it is. Yeah, no, when you reach level 11 in this class, an extra attack converts to 2 extra attacks. So yeah, you get 3. Thirsting Blade gets 3. Crazy. It almost makes them.
Which one's that one? That was
Thirsting Blade.
Yeah,
it's just on the next. It was formatted strangely.
Gotcha.
But yeah, like on the next column over, there's an it keeps going and says at level 11 you get 2 extra attacks.
Okay.
Now, this is one of those things where now it says you have to be a level 11 as a warlock.
Ooh.
As opposed to the Eldritch Blast, which you can be any character level.
Interesting.
This, you have to be specifically a warlock.
Once again, pushing for less multi-class only of the warlock, which is good, right?
Yeah.
You know, making people want to play as a class by itself is a good idea.
Yeah, and it makes it really easy to make a Gish, like one of those people that can go in, do all their damage, cast spells, do all that stuff. Like, you can go in, you can cast a spell, or you could attack 3 times at what you're at. Level 11, you're probably at +4/+4.
Yeah.
With your charisma bonus, because that's what
you're using for your attacks.
Because that's what Pact of the Blade lets you do. You can use your charisma bonus modifiers for your attacks and damage, which is great.
Yeah.
One of the best. I can't wait to remake Saphira as one of these because she's definitely gonna have the Pact of the Blade so that she can use it. It's gonna make her staff from like a baseline, because I believe it's a +1 weapon.
Mm-hmm.
It's like gonna be baseline to +5/+5.
Okay. All right.
And she's mostly a warlock.
I think the last bit of warlock we can get to when we get to subclasses of the UA stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move to the last class they've revised a little bit, which is wizard.
Wizards.
First of all, this actually brings me back to a thing that they're trying to do right now. I have noticed that in D&D, especially 5th edition, first level sucks.
Mm-hmm.
They're giving more things to first level. So look at Arcane Recovery for a wizard.
Mm-hmm.
It's moving to first level, and that makes sense. Because think of a first level wizard. Blast your spell and you're done. You know what I mean? Like,
you get 2 spells?
2 spells.
Yeah, 2 spells, that's it.
And now you get Arcane, my gosh, I'm blinking on it. Arcane Recovery, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, now I have a little bit more, okay? The sorcerer gets the level 1, innate sorcery.
It's
thing.
Also another reason to take a short rest, which is something that like I said, they keep going on and on about.
Yeah, Warlock gets the Eldritch Invocation starting at level 1. So I think they're making level 1 a little bit better, like a little bit more exciting. Because think about most campaigns, how we just start at level 3. And you're like, well, 1, 2 suck. Let's start where we get a subclass, kind of thing. So I appreciate the Arcane Recovery being moved, or at least returning to level 1.
Mm-hmm.
Spellcasting. It says that you can change cantrips now every official long rest. I feel like most people probably allow that.
They are,
right? So that's not really new.
Yeah.
We talked about the big one, modify and create spell are gone, at least in the codification of
Rippin' hell,
it.
boys.
I still plan on allowing my players to do something along those lines, so I'm not super hurt about it, because you made a great point. Do we need to codify it? You know, I do think it would be a great DM additional,
a variant rule.
Yeah, variant rule. I think that would be great.
Oh, and to go back to Warlock just a second, the capstone is you get all 4 spell slots back when you do your minute of chanting. Anyway, moving on with Wizard.
Yeah. I do like that memorize spell is not a spell. I don't have to cast the spell to use it.
That was just an oversight, I think. That was so obviously not supposed to be a spell.
I thought that's why people didn't like create spell and modify spell, though, too, to be honest. Because that was the same thing. You had to cast a spell, create spell.
Yeah, I think it would make more sense if create spell and modify spell were class features, but if instead of, whatever, but it's one of those things where like it was one. I think they made it and they were like, oh yeah, it's a spell that's creating a spell. Like it makes sense if you think about it for not more than a couple minutes. But.
Yeah. So making memorize spell a class feature, much better. I like memorize spell. I think it's a good way to change your spell book really quickly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And the thing about the wizard class is that there's just not a lot of differences. Like, there's not a lot of stuff in the baseline spell. Most of the wizard, as opposed to like the rogue or the cleric, is the same way as the wizard. Where like most of the good stuff is in the subclasses.
Yeah.
So like all of your class abilities are going to come specifically from your subclass. It's not going to come from the main class. Like the fighter has a bunch of stuff and the barbarian has a bunch of stuff.
And it feels like to me, wizard like rogue, you don't need to change much. They're already really good classes.
Wizards have been consistently the most well-realized class since they've come up with them, like back in 2nd edition. Like they know what the wizard's about. They know exactly what they want the wizard to do, and the only question is, can we make the wizard do more of what it's supposed to do without making it completely fucking broken?
Yeah.
That's where they come up against the wall, is they can probably do more things
we want to push
logically, but from a gameplay perspective, if you make the wizard too good, then everyone's going to be a wizard. And that's not like, and that's fine,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not, like, diversity is supposed to be, like, the idea, and, like, you're supposed to get, like, a bunch of different people and a bunch of different, like, role-playing things. If everyone's a wizard, then no one is, etc. Syndrome from freaking Incredibles.
Yeah. The level 20 specialization of spell is back. I've never made a level 20 wizard, so I never got to use it. I read it every time I go, that's fucking cool. I have that spell always prepared, and I can cast it at level 3 or lower without spending a spell slot. It became a cantrip. That's pretty cool.
It is cool. It is cool, but, like, the problem with it is, like, by that time you're talking about
gods.
Like, well, and here's the thing. 80% of the time I hear people use this particular feature, it's like, oh yeah, I use it with the shield spell. Why not just give them +5 AC at this point? Because no one else is going to take anything else. It's always going to be shield.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, like, it's so good that, like, it doesn't need to exist.
Yeah. No. Oh, counterspell.
Yeah, like, well, counterspell is
it third
level 3.
It's 3 levels or lower. Third level or lower.
Like, that's okay.
Cantrip.
Yeah, that's nutty.
But to be fair, could you imagine going against, like, I don't know, have you ever gone against a level 20 wizard? Like, I have never in my playing gone against a level 20 wizard.
I mean, you're talking about a player character.
True.
I don't usually play against
Have you
PC
gone against
styles.
Have you gone against a
I've gone against liches and things like that.
Okay.
Which would be, like, the equivalent of that kind of thing.
Okay.
But no one's ever done... But, like, if you do that, then monster blocks usually have, like, really powerful at-will things anyway. They have legendary resistances. They have legendary actions. They have all this other stuff. Yeah. They don't need shield as a freaking cantrip because their AC is already 28.
That's true.
And it's just one of those things where, like, it's hard to you can't really make it a PvP thing. It's not intended for Dungeons and Dragons. Like, that's not how the game is designed. Yeah. Like, having a player character block versus a player character block, you're not going to have, it's not going to be fun. Because what's going to happen is someone's going to either run out of spell slots, and, like, we saw this happen in our Strixhaven thing where, like, we fight each other and, like, it ends up being like we just do the same thing,
it becomes repetitive.
and then at the very end something happens. Yeah. So it's like, okay, like, that's what that becomes if you do PC versus PC.
No, and it's so interesting because I was planning for a session today, and it's like, hey, at some point we're going to get to the Mordecai dueling tournament today. Hopefully, depending.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see how things go. But I was just like, do I really want to use spell slots as the way to do this, or do I just want to do the kind of arcane dueling stat and then let you flavor it how the fuck you want? Yeah, which I enjoy. I love the creativity of it.
Yeah, I think that's the better way to do it as well. I think I really like that just because it takes away the annoying parts of the mechanics of being a wizard, which spell slots are annoying. I don't care what anyone says. It's a pain in the ass to keep track of them, whatever. So, but, like, it's better to be like, oh yeah, we're seeing how good we are at spell casting, not necessarily casting better spells, quote unquote. Yeah.
Cool.
Let's move on because we're about 50 minutes. We're almost an hour in.
All right. Well, if that's the case, let's move on to. I think we've been covering good and bad at the same time. Yes. So let's just move on to a real quick break into sports rambling.
Sports rambling. Okay. Why do the Lightning suck?
Yeah, I haven't been watching the Lightning, but I've been watching the Kings, yo.
Kings have been doing really well. Kings have
weaker division.
I mean, they weaker division, but they broke the spirit of the Maple Leafs the other day. That was hilarious.
Yeah, and I think did you guys lose to them? Was it 4-3? I can't remember. It was like next.
We lost to them 5-4 after we were up 4-1 at the end of the first period.
Well, they came back on you guys.
Yes.
Oh, God.
Which is funny because it was 4-1 is a meme for the Maple Leafs because back in, I think it was like 2014. Yeah. They were up 4-1 against the Boston Bruins in, like, I want to say the first round of the playoffs or whatever. Yeah. Because they haven't made it past the playoffs until last year.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Yeah.
Well, it was like 25, it was like 30 years.
Yeah.
Like, it was nuts. But yeah, and then Boston came back and beat them, and that's been a rallying cry for the Leafs are bad for so long. But yeah, that's the Lightning are kind of sucking. They have the ability to be better, unlike the Bucks, who are just bad.
I was gonna say, in sports alone, something that was interesting to me. I had ESPN dropped is like the Orlando Magic are playing the Milwaukee Bucks. It's gonna fuck us. You know what I mean? Like, Magic are gonna get destroyed. They beat the Bucks. Wow. With Giannis and that whole fiasco. They're sixth place in the Eastern Conference, which is a team that was like almost last place, by the way.
I mean, I can't remember the last time the Magic weren't in last place.
Yeah,
They've sucked for like 2 decades.
And in basketball, the top 8 make the playoffs. We're still really early on, but it's still cool to see. Yeah. The Magic have like no star players, by the way. They are all either rookies or sophomores, and they're making like 30-something points. They're just young, but they're all up. You know, they're all like top 6 draft picks.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, because you suck for 20 years.
Exactly. So when you suck for so long, it's like, hey, you actually get a bunch of draft picks. Since the last time we talked, the MLB World Series has ended, and the Texas Rangers beat the Arizona Diamondbacks. By the way,
bittersweet.
Interesting because no one predicted either team making it to the World Series.
No.
The Rangers had like a 5% chance.
That's not true. That's not true. I listened to Talkin' Baseball, and they did have the Texas Rangers as winning the World Series.
They did. Okay.
I think they were beating the Dodgers though.
Okay. Well,
I'm
Dodgers, Phillies, you couldn't go wrong with that.
Yeah, it was one of those things where like they did say that they predicted that Texas would beat Tampa, which they did handily.
Yeah.
And then, well, I mean, and this was also they did it like a week or 2 before the end of the season, so like they knew that the Rays were so depleted, like
they're exhausted.
Well, not even exhausted. They just didn't have most of their good players.
Yeah, sorry. When I say exhausted, I mean their resources were exhausted. Like they were in their minor league players at that point.
Yeah.
You had the whole Wander Franco situation. Then you have
Rip and Helm, Wander Franco,
Luke Raley, who's going on a tear, gets hurt going into the playoffs.
Brandon Lau was hurt.
Brandon Lau got hurt, who was having finally a bounce back after the All-Star break.
Rosarena was coming off of an injury, so but he did really well. But
the best player for us was Yandy Diaz, and boy did he not disappoint. Silver Slugger Award.
Yeah.
First Ray to get it since 2010.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the first Ray ever to win the batting title.
Yes, which is based on average, right? If I remember right.
Yeah, the highest batting average, and he won by like .02 or something.
Because the guy went 0 for 4.
Yeah, well, that's what happens sometimes.
At the last one.
Yeah, well, he got the last laugh because he freaking raked in the playoffs.
Yeah, he did. Was it Seager?
Yeah.
Yeah, Seager. I mean, Seager had a great World Series. Adolis Garcia had a great playoffs, got hurt in the World Series. That was hard to see because I was loving watching Adolis Garcia rake in RBIs. That was cool to see. I'm so glad Longoria got to beat the Phillies, though.
That was what I said bittersweet for, because I wanted Longo to win a World Series. Yeah. I was like, that would be really cool for Longo. Yeah. He's put in the work. He's been so good for so long, and he's still going. He still plays like decent third base.
He's keeping in shape. He's
he's just one of the cooler guys that we've had. He's just like a really good locker room presence.
He invested in Tampa a lot.
Yeah, we saw him around all the time. Almost as much as like you see the Lightning around a lot. Yeah. They're always around.
Yeah, I'm always watching, hearing about Kucherov.
Kucherov's always around. Point's always around. Freaking
Sergachev gets talked about quite a bit.
So they're all. And like that's one of the best things about the Lightning is that they're around town. They don't and they don't have to play every single day, so you have a chance to see them out and about town. Like it's not like they play every single.
All right. Well, on that rambling, let's go ahead and go back into subclasses real quick before we move on to the other stuff. Right. I don't think we need to spend too much time on subclasses. We can just talk about the good, the good, the bads at the same time. I'm looking at Barbarian. Berserker was in this playtest. They did some action economy stuff by making the Path of Berserker, making the Intimidating Presence a bonus action rather than action. Honestly, the biggest change. that's it. Okay.
There wasn't a lot.
Berserker is so highly rated. It didn't need much. Wild Heart got quite a bit of change because we're now changing away from Totem and Totem.
Yeah, it was
Warrior?
Path of the Totem.
Path of the Totem. They're now calling it the Wild Heart. Hey, BG3.
Yeah.
Which was designed with Crawford when he was working with BG3. And the biggest change is now the animals, right, it's not bear, wolf, eagle for every time you do it. It's like bear, wolf, eagle the first time, and then there's like a different land animal that's buff, a different fast, dexterous thing, and then a bird of some type, right?
Right.
And they're doing that for each one of those level ups. You mentioned the bear. The bear got changed the most, right? Yes. It lost the damage resistance to everything except Psychic Force or whatever.
Well, it used to be you were freaking resistant to everything except for psychic damage. Even force, you were resistant to force damage. Like one of the only things I gave it to you.
Interesting.
But now it's whenever you activate the rage, you choose 2 damage types other than force or psychic, and you have resistance to those particular 2. So you can pick and choose it depending on your situation.
Yeah.
But you don't get everything all at once.
Okay.
Which is like, all right. And then Eagle, like, you activate your rage, you get a bonus action to take both disengage and the dash action. So you can fucking book it if you need to.
And then the wolf gets 10 extra feet now.
But, like, and the wolf is faster. It's one of those things where, well, the wolf one is, when your rage's action, you get advantage on melee attacks rolls against any enemy of yours within 10, like, you get advantage.
It's like Pack Tactics almost, right?
Yeah, well.
Ish.
No, Pack Tactics requires other people to be there.
Oh, I thought you said something about it was around other people.
Okay. Did I say that? Then no. No, it's your allies have advantage on melee attacks rolls against any you give them pack
You're
tactics.
giving them pack tactics.
Essentially.
Okay, that's better. Yeah.
And then the thing about it is like Eagle is just what barbarian does that? Like what bonus action you disengage and dash away? Like
why are you a barbarian?
Like unless you're repositioning to another enemy, which I guess would make kind of sense. Yeah. But most barbarians don't do that, and it's definitely not as good as you now have damage resistance to everything.
I know why you would. The only thing I can think about is your friend's in trouble, so you're disengaging, dashing to go help out. So it's kind of like a can I have mobility to get to you? From
a tactical standpoint, that makes perfect sense. From I'm a barbarian in a rage perspective, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Hey. If I'm raging, I'm gonna kill the fucking thing that's next to me.
Yeah, and like I know people like, oh, I'm upset because like my friends are in trouble, but like,
yeah, would you do that when you're in a rage? Yeah,
like
you're not thinking clearly.
You can make a character like that. Yeah, but if you're making a character like that, you're probably not making a barbarian. And like as much as we like,
or you're just metagaming. Yeah,
like it's just one of those things where like you need like it's weird. It sounds strange.
Yeah. Yeah. But the new things are called for the aspect. They're called elephant, owl, spider instead of once again the bear, wolf, eagle. And then we have lion, falcon, ram for the power of the wild. So like I said, there's still along those same lines, right? There's some changes happening, of course, but they're like, hey, rather than you thinking that you're always bear totem, you know, like you're showing a bear. You're showing aspects of multiple animals. The way Crawford was explaining it in a video was that like think of this as like all of these spirits are guiding you. You know what I mean? Right. You're taking on multiple aspects of different animals, not just specifically a bear, you know? And then you can change these too. You don't have to be stuck in these based on, I can't remember if it's short rest or long rest, but you can change these things here. So that was interesting there. But that's it. That's the main changes, right? For that one.
For Berserker.
And then
or for Path of the World Tree, sorry.
Yeah.
Or not World Tree. Fuck. It's the Path of the Wild Heart.
They added a new one called the World Tree. It's a completely new subclass, so there's a lot of new stuff. You'll have to go check it out. But essentially, they're really diving into the Yggdrasil idea, and the idea that I can pull on the multiverse. You know what I mean? I can pull on bits of the World Tree, and transportation was one of the things that they liked about it. And I thought it was really, really cool. It doesn't scream barbarian to me, if I'm being honest. However, it's a fucking cool thing. You know, like...
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from.
Like, when I look at it, I go, okay. You know, like I guess we can make it barbarian because it's primal, in a sense. You know, like there's a natural affinity.
I liked it because it was one of those things where, like, it's a slight deviation from the barbarian charging you to the barbarian now brings you to him.
Yeah. Oh, fair. Like portals. We're playing portals now.
Yeah, like it's like one of the biggest things you get at level 6 is like you find a creature you can see within 20 feet of you. You can use a reaction to freaking get over here and just fucking punch him.
They're kind of like more control class now with that.
A little bit, yeah.
Because you can heal as well.
Yeah,
the level 3 thing is you can heal with it. And so I was like, oh, it's really cool.
The cool thing is you get temporary hit points.
Oh, is it hit points? Is that what it was?
Okay. You get TP.
Okay. TP, not HP. Okay.
Which is still pretty good.
Yeah. What I love about that, though, is it's so different. It's different than every other subclass we've ever seen from the Barbarian. And I appreciate that from them. I appreciate the creativity of that.
Yeah.
Go check it out. It's a cool thing to look at, and it has been announced that it's here to stay. The only thing is we might see some tweaking to the actual, not the mechanics, but I guess it'd be mechanics.
Yeah. And to your point, the level 14 thing, travel along a tree where you basically teleport somewhere. Like, it's not barbarian-ish. Like, really, it doesn't really have anything to do with being a barbarian in a real sense, but like, it's cool. It's pretty good. Most of the things you get from Barbarian are from your base class anyway, so they can do that kind of thing at level 14 where it's like, we don't need to give him anything crazy, but like, you can teleport and you can take your friends. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. The last one that's introduced on this one is the Path to Zealot. Path of the Zealot, I think, just got stronger. I don't think it got worse in any way. It just got stronger.
Mm-hmm.
You can change damage types. You can regain the additional HP when you get healed.
Mm-hmm.
And then my favorite one, the Rage Beyond Death, got even stronger
Mm-hmm.
because you become almost like a spectral presence.
Yeah.
The way they described it.
I mean, that's how they describe it as well.
Yeah. So, did they say? Yeah. And so, like I think that's pretty cool. I think that's even stronger than the previous Rage Beyond Death.
Yeah, and honestly, Path of the Zealot is one of those things where it's one of the best flavored things. Like, yes, like you want to be a paladin, but you want to be angry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, it's really good. I do like it.
Moving on to fighter for the subclasses, they had the Battle Master one. As far as what I saw from that one, once again, Battle Master is one of the highest ranking subclasses for D&D.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't feel like they had to do much. Okay. Yeah. But with that being said, they gave you a Student of War thing, which essentially was already a good skill because you gain proficiency with like an artisan thing, right? And now you get proficiency. Gosh, what was it? You gain proficiency to one skill of your choice as well.
Yeah, like artisan's tools and skill of your choice.
Yeah, so they just added a little bit extra to
Some more skills. I don't like. I get it. It's like they made it a level 3 thing instead of
Yeah.
just giving it to you at level 1, I guess. But it's like, all right, it's all right.
Yeah, know your enemy. Even better in the sense that I think is it bonus action.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, bonus action. I can look at vulnerabilities. I love that. Like that's such a great battle master, a tactician.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
it really does.
Yeah, I mean, pretty straightforward. Like I said, they did not have to do much because it's already everybody likes it already.
Yeah.
The big one, the real big one, was the Brawler, and I don't know if you want to talk about it at all, but if we want to, it was essentially a subclass that's getting cut. It didn't work because they thought it was too along the lines of Monk.
And they're right.
And it is. Yeah, it is. Mechanically, you are making a monk with the benefits. Just hear me out on this one. The benefits of a fighter.
Yeah.
Extra attack, extra attack, extra attack.
Well, I mean, the monks get extra attacks as well, but not as much. And honestly, like, the problem with... It's all of the things that you don't get your stunning strike, which is one of the things that... Or the flurry of blows that you get from a monk.
Yeah.
But... You do get like grappler, expert, you get like improvised weapons and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Unarmed expert, so like you get all of your unarmed strikes and stuff like that. Like
they were kind of describing it as Jackie Chan-ish, how Jackie Chan uses the environment.
Yeah, and I think that's the idea. But like if Jackie Chan's not a monk, then I don't know who the hell is.
Yeah.
So like, that's just what it is.
Yeah. So that one's gone. So I don't think we have to spend too much time on it. They said they would like to bring it back at some point. They just said, we don't think we're ready for it. Like we're,
That's fair enough.
You're not ready for it. And I think we're not going to be ready until we fix Monk.
We'll get it in Tasha's too.
Tasha's the return. Mm-hmm. Champion was on one of the subclasses that they mentioned here. Champion also another one that people like already.
Yeah, well, people like it. It's all passive stuff.
Yeah, which is kind of strong when you think about passive abilities. So
no, it is. Yeah, like advantage on initiative and strength was pretty good.
Yeah.
Running long jump, blah blah blah. You get another fighting style, another passive thing.
Mm-hmm.
You gave yourself a heroic advantage whenever you start turn with the.
Yeah, the heroic advantage, but now you can give it at the start of every fucking combat.
Yeah.
Turns in combat.
Yeah.
So that's really good.
Yep.
Eldritch Knight was the last one they introduced here.
I don't know if they really changed it all that much.
Did they? I mean, what does More Magic say? Now allows you to replace one of your attacks with a casting a cantrip. Okay, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah. I
can cast Fireball and hit you with my sword.
Yeah,
I like that. That's fun.
It's one of those things where it's basically a Blade Dancer thing that they used to have.
Yes, that's a great way of looking at that. So if you would rather play fighter, but have some of the things that you would get as a Blade Dancer. I like that analogy of that. Yeah.
So they're taking the Eldritch Knight and bringing it closer to the Blade Dancer, or whatever they call it. Blade Dancer?
Sure.
Blade Singer?
Blade Singer. Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, like the wizard, the Blade Singer is like a wizard, but they can do some fighting stuff, and then the Eldritch Knight is a fighter that can do some magic stuff. Yeah. Now, that being said, I don't believe they can use their action surge to cast magic either.
No,
like, they still can't do that.
It's still magic action, so it does not work.
Okay.
But what I could do is get my attack, right? And one of those be a cantrip. The other two be sword attack.
Like Booming Blade or whatever.
Then action surge and do 3 more attacks.
And probably a cantrip.
Except cantrip would be.
It catches music. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Well, no, because in the way that it's worded, and this will be a DM decision.
Yeah.
This says as part of your attack action, so you're taking the attack action.
True.
So you're not using a magic action.
That's a great point because extra attack is just an attack action.
Right, and then in this it says you can use part of your attack action to cast a cantrip. So so if I'm reading
wording,
the wording is like it's going to be one of those things, but according to the wording, you are allowed to do that.
Man, I'm really curious about that, by the way. Like, hey Crawford, what do you think, buddy?
I can't imagine that nobody thought of that before me. Like, I'm clever, but I'm not that clever.
Let's do sorcerer subclasses. So they did the draconic sorcery. The biggest thing was getting back the dragon wings. He already said they were going to. That wasn't actually going away. Mm-hmm. They just wanted to see what other options they could do and then bring it back. You know. So dragon wings.
A likely story.
Yeah, that was always, according to them, always coming back. Same thing with the draconic speech. That is the thing that they were doing as well.
So that one doesn't make any sense to me. Why do you suddenly know how to speak
dragon? Yeah.
Like, having draconic powers and stuff, perfect sense. Why can you speak dragon? Now, I say this knowing that freaking 8 out of 10 draconic sorcerers take draconic as their bonus language anyway.
Yeah.
Because everyone loves the idea of being able to speak to dragons.
Yeah.
Even though dragons mostly speak common.
I also think it's like an old arcane language.
Right. But like it's just one of those things where why? Do you know how to do that? Like what has happened to your brain that it has imprinted the draconic language onto you that like it doesn't make any sense to me.
What was interesting to me though was that you can't understand them.
Yeah, like that's another thing.
Yeah, so it's like I can like all of a sudden just start speaking it, but if you speak it back to me, I may not understand it. And it's like, does that mean that the magic is just taking on the arcane original cantation of it?
This feels like Skyrim light to me because they make this because in Skyrim the magic of the dragon is their language. Like the reason why you can do the shouts is because you're just saying the language, but because you have draconic essence in you, you can empower those words. Yeah, exactly. Like unrelenting shout. Like that basically that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
You say unrelenting shout and it happens essentially. And then Yol is fire, which is why whenever they breathe fire, they say Yol. It's like as a freaking little subtitle. He says that. It's like that's why. It's because they're just saying a word and it's happening. That's what it feels like. But like there's no real lore to back that up in the core rules of Dungeons and Dragons.
And why that would be that.
Like so it's just like one of those things like we're just putting it in there because we think it'd be fun. It's like, but it doesn't make any sense. Oh well, bye.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm curious why they would do that then. Wild magic. Here you go. This is a
wild magic.
This is a statement. Wild magic search no longer requires DM permission.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Gosh, just a little bit of the sorcery point economy. The bend luck now only costs 1 instead of 2. The wild bombardment allows you to use a wild magic effect when you cast a spell, or replenishes your expended sorcery points, which is extremely nice.
Yes, very nice.
Sorcery points are everything because you can turn sorcery points into. Spells.
Here's the thing. Like for wild bombardment, level 18, like you get to choose what happens. That's really cool.
Yeah. There's some shitty stuff, and there's some really good stuff.
Well, there's some really fun stuff in there too. Yeah.
Because there's stuff you don't want to have happen though if you're in like a shitty situation,
right.
In a close range AOE effect kind of thing. Yeah. Like, I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, so like it's fun.
I was playing as Karlak in VG3, and even though it's different, it's barbarian, right? But the wild magic surge, I'm like, please don't do this, please don't do this.
Yeah. No, it's always fun. It's always funny.
Okay, it's time. Warlock subclasses. Archfey, go.
Archfey! You get to be Nightcrawler. You bamf around like a goddamn maniac. No, it's pretty good. Like the Warlock, like the Archfey spells, like you get Fairy Fire, you get Misty Step, obviously. Phantasmal Force, really good. Sleep, really good. Blink, very good. Plant Growth is fine. You get both dominate. You get dominate beast and person. You don't get monster though.
But still, monsters. Beast is still good though.
Yes, beast is still good. Greater invisibility, very good. The biggest thing, And the coolest part about it is gonna be Steps of the Fae.
Yeah.
And it's just like one of those things where like you just get Misty Step equal to the number of your charisma modifier, which for me is +5 because I'm an insane person.
How many per short rest or per long rest?
You gain all spend on a long rest. So it's a long rest. That's still 5.
5 fucking Misty Steps.
Yep.
Dude, having one free Misty Step can change a battle.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Oh, God, it's 30 feet.
I mean, it's one of those things where...
That's so good. So good.
And
Beautiful.
Then level 6, you get Misty Escape, where you can basically... It basically gives you, like, extra stuff, like Disappearing Step. Like, if you cast Misty Step, you're now invisible until the start of your next turn.
Yeah, the disappearing part.
Yeah. You fucking just disappear.
Yeah.
Another one is like if you
the dreadful one.
The dreadful one where like you can make them make a wisdom saving throw or take psychic damage.
Yeah,
which good luck resisting that.
Love it.
It's really good. And then it kind of falls off a little bit after that because Misty Step is so good, but like you have the Beguiling Defenses, which you're now immune to the charm condition, which is really nice. In addition, immediately after a creature you can see hits you with an attack roll, you can use your reaction to reduce the damage you take by half. So you get Uncanny Dodge.
Yeah. And
it's really nice.
Bewitching Magic, when you use the illusion shit, like, like those kind of things, you can then Misty Step.
You get to cast Misty Step for free.
Which does not count against your...
Nope, you just get to cast it.
Yep.
Insanity.
Oh, so good. That's so awesome.
Unfucking believable.
Is there a negative?
Not really. There's a reason why this is one of the best reviewed subclasses.
89%, by the way.
Insanity.
89%.
I mean, who would be upset at this? You get to be a fucking...
Who are you, 11%?
Yeah. Who said no to this? The only thing I can think of is like maybe you're like me, you wanted the warlocks to be half casters.
And you're just mad.
And you're just salty about it. But like, I don't... Like,
it's so fair.
Well, no, as much as I agree with that, you can't say that this isn't cool as fuck. Yeah. That's so neat. Meanwhile,
Celestial didn't get much change.
Celestial didn't need a lot.
No. I like the patron spells you get, by the way. The ability to heal, the Revivify is nice. The Guardian of Faith is a really
good
cool
one.
Spell.
Really good. Greater Restoration comes in handy so often.
Dude, how many times do we say, hey, you got this, unless someone has Greater Restoration.
Yeah. Like Greater Restoration.
Petrification.
Yeah, it's such a good, like, versatile spell. Because, like, all the bad shit that can happen to you, it's just nice to be able to say, no, I don't deal with that. From a DM's perspective, it's hell.
Healing Light, where you can heal someone that you see within 60 feet of you, is like their level 3 thing they get. Like, Celestial's already good, let's be honest. That wasn't a problem.
Yeah.
Fiend, I think they just wanted to kind of reel in a little bit. You know what I mean? Because Hurl Through Hell was...
Hurl Through Hell was so good.
Shit, you know?
It was so good.
So they're like, okay, you know what? Let's give it a limit, like 8d10 damage.
Yeah.
But you still get Hurl Through Hell.
Wasn't Hurl Through Hell also, like, lower level?
Yeah, they raised it up.
They bring it up to level 14, which is crazy.
Yeah. Hurl Through Hell is fun, though. It's cool. As aesthetically, it's a really fun thing that they're doing there.
Yeah.
You know?
I have no problems with the Fiend one. I think it's really good.
Yeah.
I think if it's absolutely one of those things where it can be... And Fiend is still probably one of the better ones for the melee Hexblade, because you have Dark One's Blessing and Dark One's Own Luck, which kind of like really help you along with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, when you just an enemy to 0 hit points, you gain temporary hit points, which is really nice. Even if it's like 5 hit points at level 3 is not bad. Yeah. And you're probably going to kill a lot of stuff, so...
The great old one, they're really just focusing on that control.
The goo!
Yeah, that control ability, focusing on psychic, right? Clairvoyant abilities, the ability to do psychic damage.
Cautious Hideous Laughter.
Yeah,
great.
Like it's
Hunger of Hadar, great.
It is creating a thrall, like it's literally a control.
Oh, dude, create thrall is it's so crazy.
Yeah, it is designed to be a control subclass, and I love it. I think it's done.
And they have one of the ones that I was talking about, where like any spell that they have, they can change it to psychic damage.
Okay, so they can alter the actual damage type to it.
Yeah, they can change spells. Anytime any warlock spell that can cast any warlock spell that you cast that does damage, you can change it to psychic, which is really powerful because there are a lot of spells that do like poison damage or like that kind of shit, where like everything in their mother is resistant to poison. You know what's resistant to psychic? Like 2 things. And it's really good. Now, the best thing I thought in this whole thing for Goo is the Eldritch Hex, which finally brings in the thing that everyone gets wrong about Hex. Where like, oh man, you get negative on your saving throw. No, you don't. It's only ability checks.
Yeah.
Well, not anymore.
Yeah.
Now it actually affects saving throws.
Yeah.
So it's the one buff to Hex we're ever gonna get, apparently.
Yeah, and it's much needed.
I mean, I'm not gonna. It's nice. It's not good enough to bring me over to the Great Old One, unless I want to do that specifically for a flavor thing.
Yeah.
If I was going to come over for anything, it would be changing all my damage to psychic.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just really good.
And a lot of enemies do not have that resistance or immunity.
Yeah.
So it's very powerful.
Unless you're in this very specific
area,
like biome.
Yeah.
With very specific creatures, no one is resistant to psychic.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. The last class of subclasses, wizard.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't release all of their wizard ones, but they still released quite a bit of them. A lot of them are honestly just trying to focus more into the idea of what type of wizard you are. So if you're an abjure, okay, let's make you an abjure savant, right? How do we make you extremely good at those kind of spells, which is the idea of that class.
Right. They have that for everybody. Like all the time, no matter which one you do, you get basically blank savant. Yep. So you basically add
diviner.
You add one of that particular school's spells to your spell book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I'm just looking through them real quick, and I think...
And that's every time you gain access to a new level of spell.
Yes,
which is crazy.
Yeah, and looking through them, that's the idea. That you're either expending a spell slot of that type, you're getting extra types of those spells, you're getting better at casting those spells, whatever it is, that's what the main subclasses changes were to those.
I really do like Spellbreaker. Like, you always have Dispel Magic prepared. You can cast as a bonus action, and you have proficiency to your attack, to your ability check to it. I think that's really cool. I think that's really useful, and especially because Dispel Magic is such a world-breaking spell. Like, now it's even better.
Yeah. The Evoker gets that Sculpt spell thing, which is...
classic.
Yeah, which is literally just moving to level 6 is what they're doing there. But such a good job, because like, I don't want this to hit you. You know? Like, so...
I mean, Potent Cantrip will always be good.
Yeah.
Like, it just is. So, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think that kind of wraps up subclasses for us.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot. Is there another one I wanted to do? Like, Illusionist is in there, too.
But they did a bonus action thing. They made something an action from bonus action. I think it was the Illusionist. Gosh. I can't remember what it was called. I believe it was...
They have
The Malleable Illusionist, now a bonus action.
Yeah. I mean, the one I was thinking was... Going back to the Evoker was Overchannel, which seemed like it was one of those things like, oh, this is almost like a meta magic thing where like you overpower the spell.
Yeah, which is what sculpting kind of like feels like.
Yeah, it's the closest thing to what a sorcerer would be able to do that a wizard really gets to do. And then, you're right. The illusion, just like it has the improved minor illusion. Is that it? What is it?
Which part? Sorry, which one?
Which one did you say made
Malleable Illusions is now a bonus action. So after you cast illusion spell that has a duration of 1 minute.
Oh, right. Because that's one of those things where...
Like, hey, you are now this, and now you're this. You
like,
know?
Well, the reason they codified this is because a lot of the times when people cast a spell for like an illusion spell, they want to change it.
Yeah.
Which you're not technically allowed to do. Unless... Now, if you're an illusionist, now you can.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I want this hallucinatory terrain to look like this now.
Yeah.
Bonus action. You know?
Sure.
Which is cool. I think that's cool.
It's nice that you don't have to expend another spell slot, which you would have had to do besides that.
Could you imagine you're in a battle, right?
Level 6 isn't a terrible time for that either. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Like, I'm thinking hallucinatory terrain especially, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're in a battle, and it looks like there's this giant pit, so you feel like you can't get across because there's a pit. Next round, you're in the sky. You're fucking floating. Next round, you're surrounded by lava. Like, if you have traps hidden around an area, Illusionist Wizard would be fucking cool to play against.
I mean, Illusionist Wizards are already really good. Like,
think Loki. You're going against Loki, you know?
If I had to think of, like, the best wizard subclass of the school subclasses that you don't get into, like, the Bladesinger and the like, chronologically and the Gravitor, like, all those, like, extended ones.
Yeah.
I think the two best would probably be Illusionist or Enchanter.
Enchanter?
Because Enchanting is so good. If you don't unless you're facing people who are immune to charm.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
It's very versatile as well, enchanting, because like there's so many different effects you can put onto somebody.
It's one of those things that if you get enchanted, all your action economy can just go away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
bro, a whole person sucks.
Yeah, it does. And if you turn on your friends, you know?
Like, yeah. if you turn on your friends. I'd never do that.
Or your sister. Anyways.
Look. I made her do the opposite of turning on me.
The next one I have for us is weapon changes.
Yeah, we got the weapon changes.
So they redesigned the heavy property, right?
Sure.
So rather than being based on size, it's based on your strength or dex score.
It has made it to the logical conclusion of what it should have been in the first place.
Yeah.
There's no reason that I can think of that just because something is large, someone of opportune strength could wield it.
Mm-hmm.
And it also makes no sense to limit people's play styles if they want to be a gnome or a halfling, or a kobold, or like all the other like small available things we can do now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh yeah, it's small, so you can't wield a greatsword without doing disadvantage, even though your strength is 22. Like, fucking why? It didn't make any sense. And like, I can think of what they were thinking of when they made it, but it feels like one of those things like that was like the first thing they thought of, and then they never thought about it again.
They didn't give it enough thought. Like a halfling with 20 strength should be able to fucking carry it.
Yeah,
you know?
It's like they made a thing for a game that doesn't have ability scores.
Yeah,
and it's like, well, newsflash, we do. So this doesn't make any sense. But yeah, like this, like I said, logical conclusion.
Flex property is gone. I thought at first I liked that I liked that it was gone. I've been rethinking about this lately, and I actually liked Flex now.
I liked Flex too. I don't know why.
Because it was the idea. The idea, if you guys didn't know, is that you could take a light weapon, a versatile weapon, and use the two-handed damage, even though you're one-handed.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is so good for not punishing me as a shield user.
Right.
Because sometimes shield users get punished for wearing a shield.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if I'm a caster and I can't cast,
Yeah.
something like that.
Sure.
So I actually liked it, and I'm thinking about it now. And I'm like, you know what? Flex should probably go back. Maybe limit which swords can do it, or which weapons can do it if you wanted to. However, we've also been playing with the idea of don't give a weapon necessarily a specific feature. Mm-hmm. Give a prerequisite a feature. You know what I mean? A weapon mastery. So something to play with there. But yeah, I like Flex now that I think about it. I wish it was back.
Yeah, and like the biggest thing that they've done is now they have the mastery of each weapon now has a mastery.
Yeah.
As opposed to a mastery having a weapon, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've kind of flipped it around, flipped it turnways.
Yeah.
And I don't like it because there are so many things you can, especially when it comes to like the heavy property, like with the heavy you can do graze or cleave or, topple or whatever, all these things. And then they're like, okay, but instead of being able to do all of that with the weapon that you have, now you need 4 weapons.
Yeah.
Which I'm just like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
So what we've done in Pillars of Creation specifically is, and I'm sure we'll do it for all the other ones as well, is now instead of picking weapon mastery for each individual weapon, you now pick masteries that you can attribute to weapons you are proficient in.
Yeah. So if you choose a mastery that you can't attribute to your weapon, that's on you. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I would stop you from doing that, but yes, essentially.
But and so I'm thinking about it as, and I appreciate that they still provided that table, by the way, the weapon properties table.
I like it as a recommendation.
Yes.
Like this is what they recommend
Variant
you
rules,
use for this.
1 and 2.
Yeah,
exactly. And you choose. I agree with that because we raised some points about we have to be careful with how we do this, kind of thing. Because originally we're like, you get weapon mastery and a weapon. It's like, no, we need to make sure it's based on a property, right?
Yeah,
or something like that.
That was my idea because it's like, why can't you use your like for instance, slow is one of the weapon masteries. There are no prerequisites for slow. You could theoretically use it on any weapon because and the reason is because you like hit them in the leg or you do something that would slow them down.
Yeah.
And I can't think of a reason why you wouldn't be able to do that with literally any weapon.
Yeah. And I was thinking about that. Look at longsword, for example. Longsword has sap, right? No.
I think that's Vex. No,
it's sap.
It has sap. What?
Yeah.
That's nonsense.
But for me, I'm like, as a weapon master, if I know how to use a longsword really good, right?
Sure.
I should be able to use the weapon in a way that either saps you, slows you, or a different thing. You know what I mean?
Or topples you.
Now that is based on, is it based on the weapon or is it based on the weapon masteries? You choose. As a DM, you choose which works best for your table. You know what I mean?
I think it's just better because otherwise if you and this is one of the things where the fighter comes into it because and we talked about this before where the fighter has so many masteries And like the idea that the only way to get access to all those masteries is to literally carry 6 weapons on you is like that's nonsense.
Yeah, not everybody's going to be
like
I'm trying to think of a person who carries that.
No one does that. They have 2, maybe 3 weapons. Yeah. Usually they have 2 melee weapons and then a ranged option. That's what 95% of all like people who use weapons use them for.
Yeah, agreed.
But like but like rules as written, it's like no, you need. Oh, you want to use graze? You need to have a great axe. Oh, you want to use cleave? You have to use a freaking halberd. Like you have to use all. You're gonna have 4 pole arms, 2 swords, 1. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
You would be encumbered immediately. I don't care what your strength score is. You got 8 weapons on you. It's
the line from Mass Effect where he's like, "Have you seen a Turian around here? His name is Nihilus." You talking about the Turian who has enough firepower to level a whole platoon? Yeah, that's who I picture walking around.
Yeah, and he's got 12 guns on him. As opposed to, in Mass Effect 1, you have 4 guns on you, which already looks fucking stupid.
Yeah,
by the
Mass
way.
Effect 2, you get the big gun on your back too. Remember, but then they limit how many sides.
Right, but you have 3 weapons maybe,
and then one big,
and then one big old fuck you weapon, which is like already like you're kind of pushing it now.
Yeah. Yep.
But triple that, and that's what you're talking about.
And this is in technology that can be modular.
Yeah, so like it didn't make any sense to me. I didn't really like it. I thought it would be better to be like just pick what masteries you want and then pick weapons that can use that. You still have to use their prerequisite, which they included in here for some reason. I don't know why they have that if they already assigned the thing to it, but. I think the reason they did that was because I think Battlemaster has the ability to use other masteries on a specific weapon.
They can change, yeah.
Right, they can change it. And I'm just like, I understand that like Battlemaster is supposed to be like the clever one, and like that's why they have that. But it's just like I don't really see why that has to be specifically to them.
Yeah.
Like if you're giving somebody the mastery of a weapon, like you've mastered the weapon. You should be able to do anything the weapon can do because you've mastered it.
I'm just picturing that one guy who's like in a castle and he's got all his weapons in defense. It's just like, all right, now to use the bow, now to use the crossbow.
Yeah, it's just
that's the Battlemaster switching out his properties.
They have to have like 4 squires holding one of his weapons. They can hand them to him every round. Like, doesn't make any sense.
For push, they made it based on size. That makes sense. I probably shouldn't be able to push a giant. So that I get what they were doing there.
I feel like that would be undone if you have an orc, because
they count.
Anytime you have any creature that counts as a size larger than medium, I think should be able to use push.
So let's change that wording then to say one size larger or smaller than your.
Well, no, because
one size larger,
just your size or smaller.
Yeah, your size or smaller. Mm-hmm. Okay, that'd be a good way to do that. Sap is now been tied into versatile because they got rid of flex. Is why they did that.
Or no weapon. You can use your.
Oh, true.
You can punch somebody.
Yeah, you can do sap with a punch. Quarterstaff now has topple because it was flex. Spear has the sap property. I don't think it had flex. I think it had something else.
Are spears versatile?
Not that I know of.
Well, then it wouldn't be flex. Flex is a versatile property.
Spear is versatile. So yeah.
Wow, is it really?
Yeah, 1d8. It goes up to 1d8. So 1d6 to 1d8.
Huh. Okay.
What was the other one they did? Longsword has sap because it had flex. Oh, essentially anything that was versatile got something new, right?
Sap on a longsword.
Oh, did you see the short sword change?
Just whap him with the broadside.
Short sword is now officially martial.
Mm-hmm.
That's a change now because it's like, hey, scimitar's martial. Why are we not making this martial? So the most damage you can do with a simple is a 1d6, I believe. 1d8 for Great Club.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's two-handed.
And then for the most part, nothing really changed in the damage they're doing. Is Great Sword still 2d6? Yeah.
Which is wild because a freaking light crossbow does 1d8.
Yeah. So here's the interesting thing. I think, and you can completely disagree. I think that they should add shield as a damage type. I think they should make the ability to use shield as a 1d4 or a 1d6.
They had shield bash as an actual thing in 3.5, and I'm trying to think of what it was.
I think it'd be cool to have thrown ability. Like, I know I'm making Captain America by saying this.
Well, back in the day, back in the day, you had shields that you could use as shield bash, and then you had spiked shields that you would do like actual damage.
Piercing damage.
Because back in the day, you had subdual damage, which was basically non-lethal damage.
Okay.
Which is what you would come with when you had like a shield, like you were hitting somebody in the face.
You're essentially just trying to knock them out.
Yeah, essentially, and that's what. And they've changed that in 5th edition to just you can do non-lethal damage if you want to,
which BG3 does that too.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's back in the day. Shield bashing was there was a prestige class back in the day where you literally had 2 shields and you were using them as. Did you get
the defense bonus to it from it?
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I know it was crazy. Yeah, prestige classes were insane. Absolutely unhinged. It was great.
Yeah, but anyways, I think it'd be cool. I think if someone wants to make Captain America and give it the throne property and shit, why the fuck not?
I can't think of a reason why someone wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like make it a thing. Make it a fighter subclass, like a fucking
instead of brawler.
Yeah.
Instead of brawler.
Or just make the brawler one the thing that you because like it wants to use improvised weapons. It wants to throw shit. It wants to do all that stuff. Make it just model Captain America after brawler, which is hilarious.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. This isn't new, but they kept in the instead of just being in the DM's guide, there's the the musket and the pistol are now officially.
They've now codified weapons, which I think what that means is that Dez is probably going to get some pistols. We might retcon that because she did want them to begin with, so
we'll see what happens there.
I just didn't want them because like the
world you're building.
The world I was building, like, it didn't make any sense, really, but, like, if we're gonna do it, then we might as well do it, and I didn't like the firearms they had in other, like, source books, where it was, like, super fucking powerful. It's like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
But, you know, if we could change crossbow expert to pistol expert and just do the same thing.
Did they include misfire in this? If not, I do think if you do end up, I think misfire is a great thing. If you roll a natural 1 or natural 2, it fucking jams.
Yeah.
Because it's such early technology.
There are no jamming things that I can see.
I do think misfire would be a fun thing to add to it because now it's like, hey, yeah, absolutely, you can get this gun, but
I mean, to be fair, I kind of already do that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because like mine does it for the Roy.
Right.
I have a misfire.
Well, when I do, like, the only misfire that I do is natural 1s, and then...
Yeah.
But, like, you roll 2 natural 1s in a row. I had to
I was going to say, though, like, for Roy, because when I'm in pistol mode, it's only a 1, but when I put on the extending range to it, it becomes a natural 2 or lower as a misfire. Yeah. Because I'm doing more damage with my weapon.
Right.
It increases the misfire rate. And it's getting more advanced, I guess you could say. I think that pretty much sums up weapons, though, right?
Yep, that's pretty much it.
That means spells. Okay, spells, and the most part, the biggest change really comes in the bastions thing with the cantrips. I'm trying to look for the spells here in 7.
They're not in 7. They'd be in... you mean like actual spells?
I can't remember. Did they do any... I thought they did spell changes in 7. I could be wrong.
I think they did... I think they gave a couple...
Oh, there it is. Counterspell.
Yeah.
Counterspell.
That's right.
Yeah. So Counterspell now requires the target to make a saving throw instead of requiring the caster to make an ability check. That was based on, 10 plus the spell level or something like that, right? So now it's a saving throw. Interesting. I still like your idea of the arcane battle of it. I think that's pretty cool.
It's too basic right now.
Sorcerer's Burst is a D8 instead of a D6. That's the Sorcerer one.
Sorcerer Burst. And what else does it do?
Oh, I didn't look. What does it do?
I'm pretty sure it explodes, doesn't it?
Let's see.
And by explodes, I mean if you get an 8, you roll again.
If you roll an 8 on a D8 for this spell, you can roll another D8 and add it to the damage.
And then it keeps going.
Oh my god, the chain reaction? That's really fucking cool.
That's what exploding means. Whenever somebody uses the term exploding
it's
dice,
priming it for.
It basically means like you roll the dice, and if you get the maximum number, it keeps going.
That's cool.
So like if you roll a 6 and then a 6 and then a 6, you did 18 damage on a cantrip. Pretty good.
Some entropy shit there.
It's not likely to do that, but it's pretty cool when it happens.
Yeah. Oh, we mentioned already in the beginning of the session, but the Arcane Divine Primal's gone, but you and I both like it in the first place.
Yeah, we're keeping that.
Yeah. Arcane Eruption is a dex save rather than con save. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
And then we already mentioned the counterspell. Eldritch Blast and Hex are going back to their original versions. And jump is a bonus action, which I think is
That's really
good.
cool. That's really cool.
Because I kept looking at him like, oh, I'm going to use jump. It's a full action.
No one ever jumps.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
well, I mean, that was I think that was one of the BE changes too, like, or BG changes, Baldur's Gate, because like they have jumping is so useful in Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
It's useless in Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
And now because they have the now that jump is a bonus action, they've basically redone it from the ground up.
Yeah.
Now the invocation for warlocks that gives you the it was like the jump spell essentially.
Mhm.
Like now that's crazy because you
Yeah.
always have it. It's nuts. You're basically a freaking Jedi. You can do like freaking force jumps. It's nuts.
That's cool. Okay, so moving to the cantrips. This is actually not from 7. This is from 8, by the way, guys. So if you anybody's looking at PDFs, go find the Bastion and Cantrips PDF on Unearthed. That's where you'll find this. They redid them, and they didn't do all cantrips. Just the ones that they felt were underutilized.
Everyone knows what we're talking about.
Yeah. So for me, the biggest one that I've already thrown in our Pillars game is I have Blade Ward now, because having a reaction to cause disadvantage, it uses my reaction economy, which is important to me because I have a shield and I can deflect the damage away from you.
Well, the thing about it is, it's more for pure casters because a lot of pure casters don't have a lot of reaction economy
To protect themselves.
Like they have shield.
Yeah. Which is a spell level, like you're using spell.
Which is a spell. No, well, you have to use your first level to cast shield. So they have that, and they have probably this, and that's probably kind of it.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of other reactions that anyone really gets.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe absorb elements, but that's also kind of it's just a good use of a reaction that you can use constantly every time if you want to.
Yeah. And like I said, there is a cost, reaction economy, and reaction economy as we use it more and we become better D&D players, reaction economy is important.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know? So it's not for nothing.
Once your DM starts to remember that your attack opportunities cost something, everything changes.
Yep. Acid Splash now causes
AoE. Makes perfect sense.
The word's literally splash, guys.
Makes perfect sense.
We said the Blade Ward Chill Touch is now a touch spell. Chill Touch.
That's
is
wild.
A touch.
That's crazy.
Interesting. Oh wait, you mean you can't use it on undead? Why can I not use necrotic damage on undead?
I mean, it didn't really make sense. Like, I understand chill, like, the chill of the grave, but like it should be ice spell. It should be frost damage.
Yeah. Friends, you have to make a save. Difference there. But now they don't remember it. Like it's not like it's not charmed.
It's not detrimental to do it.
Poison Spray uses an attack roll rather than a saving throw, which I agree with.
Yeah.
Produce Flame is a bonus action. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, makes sense.
And then you can use your action to throw it, or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
Shillelagh gets better at higher levels. Can we do that with Hunter's Mark, please?
No, never buff Hunter's Mark.
Spare the Dying ranged. Yes.
Pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty damn good.
Pretty good.
And if you're a death cleric or whatever.
And let's be real, Chill Touch, most of the time that's going to be cast through a familiar.
Yeah. Oh, Grave Domain Cleric. That's what I'm thinking of. Grave Domain Cleric would love that because they can do it as much as they want.
Very true.
Shocking Grasp now shuts down opportunity attacks, which is kind of cool. Like you get stunned for a second.
They made it worse.
Oh, really? What does it do?
Because what it used to do is get rid of all reactions.
Oh, okay. Huh.
So it used to be back in the day before they did this.
You can't take a reaction.
You can't take a reaction or a legendary reaction.
So that sucks.
So if you had a dragon that had legendary reactions, they couldn't use them if they got shocked.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, they nerfed Shocking Grasp.
And the one that you and I have been talking about, and we're just not. I'm not sure where I fall.
Yeah.
And you've kind of don't like it as much. True Strike.
If 5 is ambivalent, I'm like at a 4.
Okay.
And I slightly dislike it.
Okay.
Only because it basically takes some higher level class features and just makes them a cantrip.
Okay.
It's like, oh man, you have to get to level 11 or 14 to attribute your intelligence modifier to your attack as a blade singer.
Yeah.
I have to wait till level 14 to do that. Or I could just take True Strike.
And you have everything.
And then I have it. It's like, well, then what's the point of these things?
Yeah.
If all I have to do is take a cantrip, then it's just and that's one of the things I could do too. Instead of for freaking Saphira, instead of taking Pact of the freaking Blade, just cast True Strike.
Can you? I'm looking at. Can you use it as much as you want to?
Yeah, it's a cantrip.
No, as in, can I use it on my? Let's say I had an extra attack. Would that count as a magic action, or would that count as an action? Then.
Well, you can't. Well, like extra attack.
Because
what are you asking me?
All right, so if I am a fighter,
give me a
all right, fighter who has Eldritch Knight, who has True Strike, and I get attack. If I do attack the first one, I can use True Strike. Can my second attack also have True Strike? Or
here's the thing, though.
Yeah.
You can't do that because it's a magic action.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious about that one.
One, you wouldn't want to anyway, because you're a fighter. You're probably using your strength anyway. It's not your intelligence isn't going to be higher than your strength. If anything, it'll be the same.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't want to do that. Decision. So even in this hypothetical situation that you come up with, it wouldn't be ideal anyway.
Okay.
So the only time it's ideal is if you're using it as, like, I could use it as a, like you could use it as an Eldritch because you have the ability to do that because you can replace a thing with a cantrip, and that's a cantrip.
Okay.
But why would you do that is the thing, because like you probably have like +4 to your strength or dexterity, and like +3 to your intelligence because it's a secondary stat to an Eldritch Knight.
Yeah.
So why? It's like, yeah, you probably could, but you probably shouldn't. So the only time it would be useful is if it's someone like me in my campaign where like my intelligence is probably gonna be +5 at some point. My dexterity is probably gonna be at +3. +2 to my attack and damage is something.
Yeah.
And then by that time I'll have 2 attacks.
Yeah.
So that's.
And you don't have to now keep doing dex. You can now just focus on your intelligence.
Yeah, exactly. And instead of being worried about like my dexterity for purposes of damage, I'll still probably worry about it for instances of like dexterity saving throws and initiative. But it's because like dexterity is just good.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things where people were given this as a class feature specifically because it makes sense for that to happen. And now, if everyone can do it, I feel like why make it a class feature? Okay. So like they need to, if they do that, if that goes through, they need to make some erratas to kind of give all of the classes that have that, which off the top of my head is Bladesinger and Artificer. I'm sure there are others.
Yeah.
But like,
there's a lot of subclasses out there.
Yeah, so like you need to give them something that replaces the thing that you're not taking it away, but you're making it basically trivial.
Yeah, so you need to add something to this, right? Yeah.
And like and people can say like, oh, but if you didn't take it as a cantrip, like you can change your cantrips though. Yeah,
that's part of the new stuff is that you can change it.
Yeah, like once you get to the point where it makes sense to take that cantrip, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, long rest I can change.
If you're the type of character who would use True Strike, you are going to take True Strike. Yeah. So it doesn't make any sense to me to have it be that way. Now, if you wanted, I had a way that I liked True Strike going in, and I think it was basically a cantrip that added, I want to say either D6 or D4 to your attack. Like it gave you a bonus to your attack.
Yeah. Do you get advantage because of True Strike or no?
Yeah, well, as it stands, like the basic one right now is you use an action to gain advantage on your next attack. Okay. But it's an action, so it's useless. You might as well attack twice.
Yeah, that's fair.
So that's what it does now.
Okay.
So my idea was something like you cast True Strike, and then as part of the action of casting True Strike, you can make an attack, and then you get plus D4 or plus D6 or something, which makes it like, but you don't get any bonus to your damage. It's just the attack because but that's how I thought of it. Huh. But I don't like it the way it is. I would do something else. That's it. Yeah. I just don't like that it's taking away the importance of class features on a cantrip.
And as we're filming this has not, like the bastions and cantrips stuff hasn't come out for review yet, so you don't know the scores of it yet. I'm sure it's close. It's been out for a minute.
I'm sure people are just excited for True Strike to do anything.
Yeah.
So, and here's the thing, it's not bad. Yeah. Like the problem I have with it is not that it's bad. The problem I have with it is that it's really good. Yeah. It's so good, in fact, that it trivializes a lot of the things that some subclasses do, and it takes away from how special taking that subclass is.
Yeah. And now you're going to, at some point, get a level up that you felt like you got nothing.
Yeah, well, that's essentially it. Like, I'm going to get to level 14. Like, oh, now you can use your intelligence modifier that you've already been doing for the past 7 levels. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, great, guys. Okay. Moving away from spells, we've already talked weapons. There was only one feat change in all of this, and it was the ability score improvement enhancement, which actually was already talked about previously in the previous Unearthed Arcana.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea now is that essentially when you hit level 19, right, mm-hmm. the last, from going forward, your stats can hit 22. Mm-hmm. So when you get to your level 20 and you get that next ability score improvement / feat, you can now use that, right, to get to 22. So that's cool, right?
Yeah,
It just increases the cap. A lot of people don't like the 20 cap, so that was their way of saying, hey, at high level, we can allow this. Yeah. Otherwise, the way to do it is magic, right?
I mean, to be fair, by that time you probably have 2 or 3 magic items that are giving you plus. You're giving you 27 strength or some bullshit.
Yeah, I got the belt of Storm Giant.
Yeah, I'm bullshit.
Yeah. So that was honestly the only feat change they had, was just that ability score improvement got enhanced there. Mm-hmm. Some small glossary changes, just as they start looking at some definitions here. They're looking at ideas like, I just had it pulled up. Dun, 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 dun.
They're now calling things the 20 test, which I think is funny.
Yeah.
They've codified blind sight a little bit. They've codified invisibility a little bit better as well. The fly speed. They've clarified grappled a little bit. Mm-hmm. So now it's like you get disadvantage on attack rolls against any target other than the grappler. You become able to be like they can move you. They specified the escape. Which I think they already had, but still.
Yeah.
Codified help action, changed inspiration to heroic advantage. That's about it.
Yeah.
Now they tried to do this with invisible with invisible, where people keep saying invisible doesn't make any sense because rules as written, if you can see invisible creatures, they're still counted as invisible, so you still get disadvantage.
Yeah.
And okay, we should go in there and we should specify. And I'm looking at it and I'm just like, you didn't fix it.
What does it now say for the invisible? It says...
you can't be affected by anything that requires you to be seen. You have advantage on initiative. Attack rolls against you have disadvantage, and your attack rolls have advantage. If a creature can somehow see you, as with magic or blind sight, you don't gain this thing. Okay, so yeah.
Okay, so that's the last line.
Okay, so they did fix it. They specifically made it, if they can see you, you don't get this advantage. But you still get concealed and surprise.
Okay, which makes sense. Yeah, that's fair.
It's just interesting.
Okay.
And then the last one that I want, they changed long rest, so now you get all your HP and all your hit dice back.
Yes, instead of half of your hit dice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is significant.
It's because nobody was doing the half the hit dice.
Well, I was.
I do because I use what do you call it? When I make a character, I do D&D Beyond for all my short rest and long rest stuff. So it does it for me automatically, rules wise.
I love that sounded like an ad for D&D Beyond.
Yeah, well. I think there was one other thing that I thought was interesting that they specified. Oh yeah, influence as an action.
Yes, yeah, which is you get a check, right? It's like a persuasion.
It's basically any time you tell me that you want to do something to interact with another creature or person, and you're trying to I want to talk to them and be make them my friend. Instead of me just saying okay, make this roll. It's essentially exactly what we've always been doing, except now it's been codified as an action.
Yeah.
So now if you wanted to do it in battle, in combat, you would have to use the action.
Yeah. So that's persuade or perform or
unless
intimidate.
Unless your DM lets you do it for free, but don't, because make it harder for your characters.
Yes. Kill them. Anyways.
Overall thoughts. I really like the Warlock. It's pretty good. I really like the weapon masteries with my tweak on it. I like the idea of weapon masteries. I think they kind of got bogged down by assigning them to each particular weapon. Mm-hmm. Bastions are really cool. There's so much to go through that I
feel like we could have a whole episode.
It's outside of the scope of this episode.
Yeah. Talk about it today?
Yeah.
Not to rush you beautiful people. It's snark from a cat.
Snark from a cat.
Besides that, barbarians were fun, sorcerers were good, spiders were good, wizards have always been good. There's nothing. I hesitate to think there's anything particularly bad about this particular playtest.
Yeah.
I think everything that they did was good.
Yeah. Yeah, the only thing now in my new foundation of understanding, I liked flex, so I'd like flex back.
Yeah,
Give me flex back.
I think flex. Honestly, if you bring, I mean, you can bring.
I can just do it
you can
myself.
just do it yourself. So
Yeah.
like that's fine. I wouldn't be mad about it, and
Yep.
it doesn't affect any of my games that I'm in with you anyway, because I think I'm a caster in both. Actually, no, I'm a barbarian caster, nonsensical person
Yeah.
in the Mass Effect one. So maybe that would apply, but
Yeah. Yeah. My overall impression is I like what they did.
Mhm.
The cantrips that were not being used have reasons to be used. We can talk about bastions later. We can talk the subclasses. The Path of the World Tree is a fucking cool subclass. Warlock, like you said, the Archfey now has even more. Like you have reason to play this besides just a really cool.
it went from the objectively worst one to
Yeah.
the not objectively best one, but
Yeah.
like a very viable option.
Probably the most interesting patron already. Now you get mechanics to go with it.
Yeah.
I
mean, I chose Fey Patron for Saphira specifically for flavor.
Right? Yeah.
Like it was just purely a flavor thing. I barely use her class abilities,
Mhm.
mostly because I have a fuck you fire staff. But either
Yeah.
way,
I love the new take on sorcerer. I think a lot of this was in a better direction than actually what they did with 6.
Yeah.
I think 6 had some really good moments and some moments where like, come on guys, like can we step it up? Yeah, you know, a little bit.
Yeah.
7 was like, good job. Like you're honing in on some stuff.
I still
That
don't know
we've been
why
wanting.
I still don't know why sorcerers are able to speak dragon.
Yeah,
Kind of weird,
but they get wings back.
but wings are cool. Can't be mad at that.
And I think that's a pretty good note for us to end on. Wings
Yeah.
are cool.
Wings are cool. I stand by that statement for sure.
So this is John from Blizzard's Locations here at Tavern Ramblings, also joined with
Andrew, I'm here to data your bios.
and we hope you enjoyed it and tune in next time as we ramble and we continue to ramble
It gets longer every time, guys.
every time.
I'll keep them to a time limit next time.
She won't.
Good luck.
I won't even be in the room again.
You're not in the room where it happened.
All
All
right.
right.